Hi students, once again in meeting you, discuss about the lesson, that's chapter 10 or 11, Organisms and Populations. The last class we were talking about just what we have the population attributes. One of the attributes of population is population age distribution. In a population, we have three different what is called age groups based on the nature of reproduction. One is pre-reproductive, that is, the young individuals not attaining puberty. Then reproductive, the individuals, the adult individuals which can have the capacity of reproduction. Then post-reproductive, the individual which lost their reproductive capacity. They are called post-reproductive age groups. So, proportion of age groups such as pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive in a population is what we have age distribution attribute. Different groups of people, how many you have in these three different stages of age groups based on the status of reproduction. Now what is its importance? This normally determines the reproductive status of the population. Determines the reproductive status of the population at a given time. In which status the population is there, either in pre or reproductive or post-reproductive. And also, it is an indicator of future population size, whether the population is growing population or stabilizing population or declining population. That is with reference to the size of the population in these three stages. If it is a growing population, the size increases. If it is a stable population, the population remains in its original size. Then declining population, the number of individuals or the size of the population is decreasing. So that's why you see that what this age distribution determines the reproductive status of the population as well as the indicator of the future population size. Now, what are the three different groups? What is the nature of what is called the growing population or stabilizing population? Which group of individual is more in number? Suppose if the population is growing rapidly, the growing population, see that one, rapidly growing population. What type of individuals they have? Either pre-reproductive or reproductive, post-reproductive. Now the rapidly growing population will have larger proportion of young individuals. That is, individuals at the pre-reproductive stage. Larger number of young individuals. Then we have another one, a stable population. One is a rapidly growing population, otherwise we can say expanding population. Now a stable population, there is no increase in size of the individual, so the population remains in its original size. What type of individuals more? Here or less or stable? Now a stable population will have an even distribution of all the three groups of individuals. Even distribution of all the individuals at the pre-reproductive, reproductive and reproductive stage are in equal numbers. That's why I say we'll have an even distribution of various age classes. The three age classes, pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive. Then the third type of population, one is a growing population, the expanding population, another one is a stable population without increase in number of individuals. The third one is declining population, decrease in number of individuals. What type of individuals we have in the declining population? The declining population tends to have larger proportion of old individuals. So larger proportion of old individuals are present, that is nothing but the post-reproductive individuals are more in number. Post-reproductive individuals are more in number. So we have in a growing population, that is more number of pre-reproductive age groups. In the case of stable population, we have all the classes, the three classes, the three age groups are evenly distributed. Now in a declining population, we have more number of post-reproductive individuals, those individuals which lost the power of reproduction. I represent the same in the form of what is called actually illustration. I'll show that now. Hi students, I explain about the population age distribution. When we constructed the number of individuals in each group, we will get what is called age distribution. That's what is called the illustration or the curve, we can say. Now we have three different groups of individuals: pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive age groups. Now when we are just plotting these individuals, now we have the first one, increasing population. In the case of increasing population, we have more number of just younger individuals or pre-reproductive age groups. And the number is declining when you are going up to reproductive and pre-reproductive. So that we are getting what's called pyramid shaped, what is called the age distribution. Pyramid shaped one, age distribution one, what we call just in the form of pyramid. Age pyramid. This is called age pyramid. Now the second one, just a stable population. In the case of stable population, all the three groups of individuals, the pre-reproductive, reproductive and post-reproductive individuals are more or less evenly distributed. As a result, we have a bell-shaped curve. So here we are getting what's called a bell-shaped curve like this. Now this is more or less pyramid shape. You see that one, the age distribution is in the form of actually pyramid shape. And this one is more or less what is called the bell shape. This is more or less bell shape. Stable population. Now in the case of third one, the declining population, we have more number of what we have just post-reproductive individuals than what we have the younger individuals. The older individuals are more in number. As a result, we are getting what is called a water path. That is what is called urn-shaped, what is called the pyramid. Urn-shaped pyramid, or what we call age distribution. Now this is what is called urn-shaped. A pot like. So we have just urn-shaped in the case of declining population. More number of what we have the individuals of larger size or the older individuals. In the case of stable population, it is about bell-shaped pyramid, the age pyramid. And here we have just more number of just almost all the individuals are distributed evenly. In the first category, we have increasing population or expanding population or growing population. It is of pyramid shape. We have more number of younger individuals and least number of the older individuals, nothing but the post-reproductive. Here, pre-reproductive individuals are more, all are equally distributed. Here, what we have the post-reproductive individuals are more in number than what we have the pre-reproductive individuals. So these are the different types of what we have the curves or what we have the age pyramid we can see. Pyramid shape, bell shape and urn shape. Okay, go through the book also. That's about the population age distribution. We have to go for the next one, the growth models and curves. Now, populations show characteristic growth forms or patterns. These patterns can be plotted in the form of a graph and form as two types of growth forms or patterns. One, J-shaped growth form, another one, S-shaped growth form. It is otherwise called what is known as sigmoid growth form. Sigmoid growth form. Now, what is J-shaped growth form? Where you come across this type? Now, normally the population is increasing rapidly, more rapidly, until a check is there, obstruction is there, in the form of what we have, that is a limiting factor or environmental resistance. Now, so when a population increases rapidly in an exponential fashion, exponential growth, we have just increasing just up to the limit, even the maximum, rapidly. That's called exponential fashion. And then stops abruptly. Abruptly means just all of a sudden. What is the reason for that one? One of the reasons, due to environmental resistance. Due to environmental resistance. What do you mean by environmental resistance? Now the different factors, the different environmental factors, both biotic and abiotic, acted together to prevent what we have the reproductive ability of the individuals, what is called the biotic potential of the organism. That is called what is known as environmental resistance. The sum total of all the factors, including biotic and abiotic factors, which act together and prevent what is called biotic potential of an organism. This is what's called environmental resistance. Or it may be the J-shaped growth form due to sudden appearance of a limiting factor. It may be a climatic conditions, for example, rain as a limiting factor, or light as a limiting factor, anything as a limiting factor. The availability of oxygen is a limiting factor. So the animals or the plants are growing in an exponential fashion that is normally stops abruptly, blindly, due to two reasons, either because of environmental resistance or due to sudden appearance of a limiting factor, the one which stops the activity. Then they are said to exhibit what is called J-shaped growth form. One of the best examples you can see, many insects normally show explosive increase in number of individuals when during rainy season. So they increase normally rapidly during the rainy season and followed by the disappearance at the end of the what is called the season. So during rainy season, the insects are normally growing an increased number for aggregation to maintain their body temperature collectively together. When they just normally maintain a stable body temperature. That's why they're increasing in number during what's called the rainy season. And followed by the rainy season, the disappearance of the insects occur. So it is reaching a peak. The limiting factor here is the rain. When the rain stops abruptly, the growth or increase in number of the insects also declining. This is an example for J-shaped growth form, growing continuously in an exponential fashion. There is nothing with the lag phase, log phase, and steady state phase. Normally, there is no steady state phase. They are reaching until the organism is stopping its reproductive potential. What is the biotic potential? The biotic potential is nothing but the ability of an organism to produce the maximum reproducing capacity of an organism. Under natural conditions, that is called what is known as we have biotic potential. Environmental resistance means the sum total of all the factors including biotic and abiotic which together act to prevent what is called the biotic potential, the reproducing capacity of an organism is called what is known as environmental resistance. Okay, so I am sure that just actually the what is called the graph also after finishing the second one, just S-shaped growth form. Now let's see the S-shaped growth form, otherwise called sigmoid growth form. So some populations normally grow slowly at first, then more rapidly, and finally gradually slows down. That is, as the environmental resistance increases, whereby the equilibrium or we have what is called just stability is reached and maintained. Now their growth is represented by what is called S-shaped growth form. So in some populations you can see growth starts slowly and then more rapidly and then gradually slows down. When the environmental resistance that is increases, whereby what is happening, equilibrium is reached and the equilibrium is maintained. A stationary phase we can see that is maintained. So their growth is normally represented by S-shaped growth form. Here I represent the form of a graph that is both what we call J curve and S curve. Now in the case of J-shaped curve, you see that one is growing in an exponential fashion, increasing rapidly. So when there is the reproductive capacity is there. So what is biotic potential? The maximum capacity to reproduce or the maximum reproducing capacity under natural environmental conditions is called biotic potential. Now sometimes what will happen, the animal is growing on and the population is growing on continuously when there is a barrier, when there is a check in the form of environmental resistance. What is environmental resistance? The sum total of all the factors, both biotic and abiotic, which normally just prevent, which together, both biotic and abiotic factors, which together act to prevent the exponential what we have the biotic potential of an organism, then it's called environmental resistance. It is operating. Food may be environmental resistance, we have the rain, etc. What is carrying capacity? Now the carrying capacity, you know that one, the maximum number of individuals that the region can normally hold without that is what is called environmental degradations until the environmental incident resistance is there. So the carrying capacity is the sum total of that is what we call all the organisms or all the factors including biotic, abiotic, normally just actually ability to support the growth and reproduction of the organisms, and that is called the carrying capacity, beyond which there is no population growth. the growth is normally declining. As a result, we have the population size decreases. So the sum total of all the factors, including biotic and abiotic, which acted together to prevent what is called the exponential reproducing capacity. That is called the environmental resistance. Carrying capacity, the sum total. That is what we have. The maximum number of individuals that a region can support. Okay, can support. And then is called carrying capacity. The maximum number of individuals or species or population that a region can support, and that is called carrying capacity. Okay, environmental resistance normally both biotic and abiotic factors which act together prevent what we call the biotic potential. Biotic potential is nothing but the reproducing capacity of an individual. The maximum capacity of individuals produced by an organism by means of reproduction is called biotic potential. So the J-shaped growth is increasing number of individuals more rapidly. But in the case of S curve, there is a lag phase, slow start. Then also the long phase, that is more rapidly and then slows down. When there is what is called the saturation point, or we have also the equilibrium is reached, and that one is maintained in that population. It's not growing beyond that level, and that is what is called S-shaped growth form. So we have different types of growth curves. What is called the exponential growth. This is otherwise called exponential growth curve. This is otherwise called logistic growth curve. It's not included in the syllabus. We have some calculations also we'll be studying in what is called the NEET paper. Okay. Now let's see what is biotic potential. Otherwise called reproductive capacity, that is equal to small r. Now it is a maximum reproductive capacity of an organism under natural environmental conditions. The maximum reproductive capacity, which is represented R, of an organism under natural environmental conditions is called biotic potential. What is environmental resistance? It is a sum total of various environmental limiting factors, both biotic and abiotic, which together act to prevent what is called the biotic potential of an organism from being realized. Before realization, it prevents the biotic potential. Nothing but the reproducing capacity of an organism is suppressed or prevented by the various factors found in the environment, namely the limiting factors. Before what we can have from being realized, that what is called just actually the population growth. So sum total of limiting factors preventing what is called biotic potential. Then carrying capacity. The maximum number of organisms that a region, either the desert or a forest or any other biome or any other habitat, that the region can support without environmental degradation. So the environment should be stable without undergoing degradation. Under such conditions, when the maximum number of organisms that the region can support by what is called the factors without environmental degradation is called what is known as carrying capacity. Maximum number of individuals that the region can hold without environmental degradation, that will affect that on the population size. Without environmental degradation is called what is known as carrying capacity. So these are all different actually the definitions related to the biotic potential, environmental resistance, and then carrying capacity. Now we have to go for all selected species and K selected species. All selected, you know that one, that is nothing but reproductive capacity selected species. K means carrying capacity selected species. We have to make the differences between these two. All selected species and K selected species. All selected means reproductive capacity selected species. Reproductive capacity selected species. Then what we have K that refers to carrying capacity selected species. We'll make the difference now. Now let's see what are the differences between R and K selected species. R refers to the reproductive capacity, K refers to carrying capacity. So we have two different types of species according to the selection, either by reproductive capacity or by means of carrying capacity. Let's take the size of the organism. Here small sized organisms actually follow this reproductive capacity selected species. All selected species are the smaller organisms. Now the case selected species are normally larger sized organisms, which includes larger sized organisms. Regarding the number of offspring produced, now these all selected individuals normally produce many offspring, but here only few offsprings are produced by what is called case selected species. Now the all selected species mature early. Now we have in the case of case selected species, they attain late maturity with the extended parental care. So early maturity, then late maturity. About the lifespan, they have short life expectancy and here long life expectancy. The animal selected by K just to show long life expectancy. Now here, each individual produces only once or a few times during their lifetime. That is in the case of R selected species. They actually reproduce only once or few times in their lifetime. But in the case of K selected species, these species can reproduce more than once. Here only once. There you have more than once. Okay, they reproduce more than once in their lifetime. Then about the reaching maturity. Here only few reach the adulthood, attaining maturity, reaching the adulthood. And here more individuals reach maximum lifespan. They can just actually live for a long time. Just the individuals after attaining adulthood, they reach a maximum lifespan. Now they need normally unstable environment. So all selected species normally just occur in unstable environment where they depend on the density is not there. So density independent. These organisms are density independent. They are living in unstable environment. But here the case selected species normally they live in stable environment. They need a stable environment, but the density dependent. They depend on the density. The number of individuals or the size of the population will affect what is called a case selected species. So they are density dependent and here they are density independent. So they are needing or living unstable environment. They live in stable environment. These are some of the differences between reproductive capacity selected species and carrying capacity selected species. R for reproductive capacity and K for what we call carrying capacity. That's all about what we have actually the differences between R and K selected species. Let's pass on to what we call the population regulation, the next one. Now, what is population regulation? How is it normally regulated? Now, each individual has the tendency to increase in number. That's a main tendency of all animal populations. So, the inherent tendency means until right from birth, tendency of all animal populations is to increase in number. But it does not occur indefinitely, continuously. Once the carrying capacity of the environment is reached, population numbers remain stable or we have just fluctuate depending on environmental conditions or situations. So once carrying capacity is reached, now the population numbers remain static or fluctuate depending on the environmental conditions. This is regulated by many factors. A number of factors are involved in regulating the populations. They are classified under two groups. Number one, density independent extrinsic factors. Number two, density dependent intrinsic factors. Those factors operating within the individual, within the population. And those factors present outside the population, that is what we call the environmental factors. Now, what are the examples of extrinsic factors? They include the availability of food, the shelter, the space, and also weather, etc. These are all present outside. These include availability of space, shelter, food, weather, etc. And what are the intrinsic factors that regulate population? These include competition between the individuals, then we have predation. Carnivore just gets its what is called prey. Emigration, movement of individuals away from the population. Immigration, movement of individuals into the population, and the spread of diseases, which will reduce what we call the number of individuals by death. So we have both extrinsic and intrinsic factors that regulate the population. So population regulation is because of the two factors, and that too because of the carrying capacity. Once the carrying capacity of the environment is reached, the population is either static or fluctuating, remains stable without undergoing any change, fluctuating, changing in numbers, changing in size. So that's about what we have population regulation. You have to go for population interactions. We'll see in the next class. Okay, thank you.